Most people have a job, and they are very good at it. They show up on time. They meet the deadlines. They exceed expectations. They get the performance review. They earn the raise, and then they go home. And the next day, they do it all over again. But here is the question nobody asks them. While you were building someone else's business today, what did you build for yourself? There comes a moment when you realize that the most productive hours of your day, the hours when your mind is sharpest, your energy is highest, your focus is at its clearest, belong to someone else. Not by force, by choice. A choice most people made without fully understanding what they were trading away. Most people trade the best hours of their lives for the security of a paycheck, and they call it a career. Robert Kiyosaki called it something else, minding someone else's business. In the last step, we talked about the language of money, how the words you know determine the world you can see. Today, we go into one of the most practical, most overlooked and most psychologically powerful ideas in all of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mind your own business. Not as an attitude, not as a dismissal, as a financial strategy, as one of the most important decisions you will ever make about your time. Let's begin. Here is what most people do with their financial life. They optimize their income. They work harder to earn more. They negotiate raises. They chase promotions. They switch jobs for a better salary. All of it focused on one thing: more income. And every year, that number goes up. And every year, their lifestyle expands to meet it. And every year, the gap between what they earn and what actually builds wealth stays almost exactly the same, because they are optimizing the wrong thing. Rich Dad made a distinction most people never think about: the difference between your income and your assets. Income is what you earn. Assets are what you own that continue to put money in your pocket. Most people spend their entire lives focused on income. More salary, more overtime, a better budget. The wealthy focus on assets, a growing collection of things that generate income whether they show up tomorrow or not. And here is the psychological trap that keeps most people stuck. Income gives immediate feedback. You work, you get paid. The number appears. It feels real. It feels rewarding. Assets work differently. You invest. You wait. At first, nothing seems to happen. The growth is invisible until suddenly it isn't. Compounding stays quiet for years. Then one day it becomes impossible to ignore. And most people never get there. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, because the timeline of wealth feels painfully slow. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad put it simply: the rich focus on building assets. Everyone else focuses on earning income. And those assets, that growing column of things that make money without your time, that is what Kiyosaki means when he says mind your own business. Not necessarily a company, not a logo, not a business card, a system, a collection of assets, a structure that slowly buys back your freedom. And most people never start building it because they are too busy building someone else's. Now here is where people misunderstand the idea. Most people hear this and immediately think about quitting their job. That is not what Rich Dad teaches. Keep your job, keep the paycheck, keep the security for as long as you need it, but start redirecting part of that income into assets. Before lifestyle, before status purchases, before rewards, your job is the engine. Your assets are the destination. The engine exists to fuel the journey, not become the journey itself. And here's the distinction that changes everything. There's a difference between working in a business and owning a business. Most self-employed people, most freelancers, most consultants believe they own a business. But many of them don't. They own a job completely dependent on their presence, their energy, their health, their availability. A job that stops the moment they stop working. Rich Dad's definition of a real business is brutally simple. A real business keeps making money even when you're not working. If it cannot run without you, it is not a business. It is a demanding job with more stress and less security. And this changes everything. Because many people who believe they are entrepreneurs are actually employees without a safety net. They traded the security of a paycheck for the illusion of freedom. And now they work longer hours than before, with more pressure than before, inside a system that still depends entirely on their time. The question is not, are you self-employed? The real question is, does your income stop when you stop working? If the answer is yes, you are still trading time for money. No matter what title you give yourself. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never confront. The reason most people never build assets is not because they don't know they should. It is because building assets requires delaying the lifestyle they believe they have already earned. The raise came, so the car got upgraded. The bonus arrived, so the vacation happened. Every increase in income was immediately converted into a more expensive lifestyle, and the asset column stayed empty. Because lifestyle upgrades are visible, people notice them, people reward them, people congratulate them. Nobody congratulates you for buying an index fund. Nobody throws a party because you reinvested dividends. Nobody notices the quiet decisions that slowly create freedom. And so the invisible column stays empty, while the visible life gets bigger, heavier, and more expensive. But what does that actually look like in the real world? Because most people hear the word business and picture something large: an office, a team, a product on store shelves, a company with a name and a logo and a receptionist who answers the phone. That is one version of a business. But Rich Dad's definition is simpler and more accessible than most people ever realize. A rental property that collects $1,200 a month in rent while you sleep. That is a business. A YouTube channel that generates ad revenue from videos you made 6 months ago. That is a business. A digital course you built once and sell automatically to people you will never meet. That is a business. A dividend portfolio that sends you a check every quarter regardless of whether you worked that week. That is a business. A piece of software that solves a problem for thousands of people without requiring your daily involvement. That is a business. An e-commerce store that processes orders automatically while you live your life. That is a business. None of these require a team. None of these require an office. None of these require a large upfront investment. What they require is a decision. A decision to build something that works without you. Something that exchanges value for money, repeatedly, without your constant presence. The size does not matter at the beginning. A rental property generating $400 a month is a business. A YouTube channel making $200 a month is a business. A digital product selling $100 a month is a business. What matters is not the amount. What matters is the structure. Income that arrives without requiring your time. That is the definition. That is the goal. That is what separates the asset column of the wealthy from the income statement of everyone else. And here's what most people miss. You do not build all of these at once. You build one. You learn from it. You optimize it. You let it run. And then you build another. Rich Dad did not build an empire in a day. He built one asset, then another, until the assets generated more income than his expenses required. And on that day, work became optional, not because he was lucky, because he minded his own business, while everyone around him was too busy minding someone else's. Here is the only metric that truly matters. Not your salary, not your job title, not even your net worth on paper. The gap between your passive income and your monthly expenses. When passive income covers your expenses, you are financially free. Not necessarily rich, free. And when passive income exceeds your expenses, you gain something even more valuable. Options. The option to leave. The option to stay. The option to work because you want to, not because you have to. That is what you are building when you mind your own business. Not an empire. Not a brand. Not some flashy version of success. A gap. A gap that grows quietly, consistently, month after month, whether anyone notices it or not. Here is your action for this week. Open a document. Call it My Asset Column. Then write down everything you currently own that puts money in your pocket without requiring your time. If the document is empty, that is not failure. That is your starting point. Now write down one asset you could begin building or acquiring within the next 30 days. Not the perfect asset, not the smartest investment, just one. One thing that moves the column from empty to started. Because started is one of the most important financial states you will ever be in. Remember that moment I mentioned earlier? The moment you realized that the best hours of your day belong to someone else. That moment does not have to define the rest of your life. You can keep showing up for someone else's business, and at the same time, quietly, without needing anyone's permission, begin building your own. One asset at a time, one decision at a time, 1 month at a time, until the column is no longer empty, until the gap is no longer zero, until the math makes the choice for you. That moment, it starts now. In the next step, we'll talk about the 4 types of knowledge that actually determine your financial future. Not IQ, not education, not experience. Something completely different. Something most people never develop. That's step 7. Don't miss it. If something shifted for you today, subscribe for the next step. Every week, one more idea the wealthy understand early, and most people learn too late. Stay on the blueprint. See you in the next step.